Good evening. Welcome to the Spiritual But Not Religious Show. I'm your host, George Lewis. Thanks for tuning in tonight. I've got a great guest for tonight, but before I tell you about Annie Burnside, who is my guest this evening, I want to talk with you a bit about my next week's guest, who is Howard Falco. Howard wrote a book called I Am. It's the power of discovering who you really are. And his publisher is Penguin Tarcher, which is a big-time publisher. So the book is great. You're going to be in for a real treat with Howard. Be sure to join us next week. My guest tonight is Annie Burnside. Annie wrote a book called Soul to Soul Parenting, and she's just a treat. You're going to really enjoy her. But before we bring Annie on the show, let me talk to you a bit about and tell you what we're doing with Spiritual Broadcasting Network, why we have the Spiritual But Not Religious Show, what our purpose and what our intent is. From what I can find out, the spiritual but not religious community is huge, and the statistics that I've been able to garner at this point is that 1/5 of the American population now consider themselves as spiritual but not religious. That's a lot of people, folks. And because we're so diverse in that what we believe around being spiritual but not religious, and most of us don't go to church. Some do, but most don't. So there's no real community. We have no central gathering place, no real place where we have a voice. And so the purpose of the Spiritual But Not Religious Show is to bring you those many, many voices. The Spiritual Broadcasting Network is in place to bring you many, many more shows like the one that I'm doing here now, only in all kinds of modalities. And we'll be beginning to bring those online after the first of the year. It was a lot of prep work and technical work getting ready to do that part of it. So be sure and stay tuned with us. We've got just a lot of really good plans. You're going to hear and see a lot of really great shows, a lot of really great people. I'm convinced, and have been for quite a few years now, I've been working at this idea that we really are in a spiritual, I don't know if you want to call it a spiritual revolution, but certainly a period of time where we're in the process of a spiritual transformation. What I believe is happening is that the world is at a place now where we could easily destroy ourselves, and it's just gotten really out of hand with self-centeredness, greed, and all the dark side character defects. I believe that we're reaching a tipping point where just enough people come in and we'll actually do a flip, and we're not going to be in utopia. It's still going to be the world. We may not even know that it changed, but rather than being so taken over by the dark side, which it is at this point, the light side will begin to hold sway, and everything will change. And that's what spiritual broadcasting is all about. To convince one person at a time that that's a possibility so they can begin believing that. And that pretty much is everything behind our intent and our purpose. At this point, I want to bring Annie Burnside on. And Tom, is Annie on the line here with us? Annie, did we lose her? Oh, Annie, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi there. How are you?
Great, thank you.
I've been looking forward to tonight. I totally enjoy your book. Not only do I like your book, but I like, what you're doing really fits this idea of a spiritual transformation. I don't know if you were listening to the front end of this or not, but I believe there's a spiritual transformation, and that means that the children of today are going to have to be, living differently in a new world. And I see you changing people, changing these children, and helping them to actually reside in that new world. I think it's phenomenal.
Thank you.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
It goes well beyond our own family and just conscious global citizens beginning as early as possible to identify your gifts and offer them to the world.
Well, Annie, I think that's the deal, isn't it? It's about waking up and being conscious.
Yes.
That's the transformation.
It is. And it just, I'm sure we'll get into this, but it just hit me so clearly. There's no need to wait until my children are 40 and they go through a tragedy that forces it. they're very capable right now of living from that interior outward
Absolutely.
versus the opposite. So that was really the goal of the book and my work in general.
Cool. Tell me, do you live in Chicago or are you in a suburb?
I am just outside where Northwestern University is, by the lake there, Evanston-Wilmette area.
So you know full well the lake effect.
Oh, yes. We do.
Well, you know, it's been pretty cold. We're down here in Sarasota, Bradenton area, and it's been 32, 30, you know, in the early 30s. And for here, that's cold. I don't envy where you're at.
I know, and I was telling your wonderful producer, Tom, I'm headed down there in that area on Saturday.
Where are you going to be?
I'm hoping for some nice warmth, a little bit at least, you know.
Are you just in town for Saturday?
No, for the holiday, in the Naples-Fort Myers area.
Oh, okay, great.
So
well,
beautiful.
That's super. Maybe at some point we can connect up. I'd like to meet you and your husband.
I would love to.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Listen, I want to tell you a couple of things. One is that I have been in a recovery program for a 12-step program for like 28 years. And I've written a book myself, and I've worked, you know, like in depth with people on making the changes and living by principles. And I've had many times I've tried to get someone to write a book that would take the principles of those of the 12 steps and put them in a format that children could understand.
That would be brilliant.
Oh, well, you know, what you do in your book, I think, is very interesting. You know, you're really dealing with principles here, and you call them themes.
Yes.
What a great way to do that, because the word principle is, you know, a word's got such baggage with them, you know. And so that was really well thought out. I think that's great.
Well, thank you. You know, I really desired the book to be both practical, just everyday tools, music books, movie, chapter books, adult books, parent contemplations, and I love the more theoretical, these themes and principles that we discuss. So for me, I absolutely had to share my perspective on that, and I realize we all have many different principles that fit our own needs. But I wanted to give a framework for those parents who perhaps did want to offer some themes.
Well, it's a super framework. So with that in place, now I want to tell you that as far as our conversation tonight, I want to ask you some really difficult questions. But my purpose in asking them is not about making it hard for you. My purpose is I want our audience to really get a handle on the effectiveness of what you hear, because I see in the book, in reading the book, I see your experience with this, and you know, theory goes a long way, but theory oftentimes it doesn't cut the mustard. It doesn't make it, you know, but where experience does. And
yes, you know, I'm so glad you point that out, because it's a process that's ongoing, and I really wanted to offer in the book too, kind of a close-up look of what spiritual development for both the parent and the child can look like within a normal modern family.
Well, if there's such a thing.
Exactly. Normal quotes, big quotes around that, of course.
Yeah. So, but before we get into talking about the book, I want to talk about Annie. Let's give our audience an opportunity to come to know you, and I think in that process they'll appreciate what you've done here more. And by the way, if you, in the process of this, if you decide you want to buy Annie's book, you can go over to AnnieBurnside.com. Isn't that your website?
Yes, either that or Soul to Soul Parenting. It'll take you to the same place.
Right, and you slip over there, pick Annie's book up. Believe me, I'm not trying to sell books here, but it's a good read, and it will help you tons. So, tell us how you were raised. Tell us a bit about your family life when you were
you know, very young parents, highly social. I'm the second born. I was always, and still am, a very contemplative, reflective. I'm a beer. You know,
right.
I do when I have to do, and I, of course, you got to make things happen. But I am naturally very content, just in kind of an appreciation. I've always been that way.
Right.
But when I was 19, my parents went through a very difficult divorce, and it cracked me wide open. And a big part of this is, I think, even from what I've briefly heard of you, it's about those dark nights can offer the greatest evolutionary leaps as far as the soul is concerned.
It's amazing that like the greatest gifts aren't always under the Christmas tree, are they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So really even helping your children understand that those challenges are important, they are purposeful, and will navigate them fully and go through all the emotions necessary. But the upside is huge if you can begin to see those challenges from a larger perspective. So the divorce really cracked me open, and my father offered me some different types of books. Richard Bach's A Bridge Across Forever, who wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull, Shakti Gawan's Living in the Light. And I have to say, they dropped me to my knees, breathless, crying, tears of joy, because nothing had ever resonated so much with my own soul. And that's where my personal growth practice really began. And then I just couldn't get enough of it.
So Annie, would you say that event was the most traumatic thing that's happened for you in your life?
I would say it's one. It's one. I think in our lives we often have a handful of pretty pivotal events,
right.
that are often challenges. And yes, that event actually put me square in the face of my soul purpose. And I didn't know it at the time. But.
So the transformations that began to happen for you, did you have some specific modality to do this inner work that we end up needing to do? Or was it just through the reading, or how did that?
It became my greatest passion, which again, I'll keep always bringing it back to what we're teaching our children, the passions, what brings you joy, what creates that sparkle in the eye. And for me at the time, it became like metaphysical type bookstores or that section in the big Barnes and Noble. I could feel the elevation. 20 years later, where I was most like a kid in the candy shop, now I'm doing that work.
Absolutely.
So a big part of it is really kind of allowing yourself to follow. I mean, my soul was just leading me. Find out more, learn more. I worked with many mentors, study groups, books, but it's a very intimate.
It's a one-on-one thing, isn't it?
It really is, and you just keep going and uncovering more, and the more you open up to kind of those areas that haven't been looked at within yourself, the more capacity you have for that ecstasy that people talk about. It's the light and the dark, I've found, the combination of both.
It takes both, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and I recommend to many people, say, how do you go down the path of soul-to-soul parenting? And you mentioned it earlier. I mean, to me, it's over 50% is the parent beginning to open up to a new perspective, and whether it takes AA, whether it takes spirit circles, channeling, whatever you're feeling for personal growth, go down that path, and it will naturally seep into the energy of your family.
Do you know, you mentioned AA, I guess, and there are a lot of people who belong to AA, but do you know there are over 155 different 12-step programs?
I did not know that.
155.
Wonderful things.
Oh, well, the people who are involved with that are so keyed into anonymity, and there's also such a stigma attached with drug addiction and alcoholism. But I mean, there's everything from drugs and alcohol to there's one called Messi's Anonymous, and these I don't know if you've seen this show on TV for clutterers.
Yes.
That's an addiction, and it's like
food. All of it really stems to the inner wounds that need to be healed, right?
Yeah, and I think what you were saying was a real key with this. That there are millions of people who are involved in these programs, and what they're doing is on a day-to-day basis. They're meeting in basements and church halls and all over in the country and in the world, working on the very kind of things that your book talks about to make a transformation. Mm-hmm. And it's very, very, very powerful stuff that's happening in the world. A lot of things we don't know.
And part of this for our children, as I said, a big goal of mine with my own children and the world at large is that we're not raising kids with psychic debris, so that when they're 6, you're allowing them to release anger, so it doesn't become stuck in their body to be looked at later in their vibration as an addiction. And so we want to really allow people to be comfortable in their own skin all the way through. so they don't begin to cover things up. Because as you know, it's going to have to be looked at some time. When you're 20, when you're 30, when you're 50.
Well, I know one thing for sure. If you don't do it, it's going to come out at the most inopportune time and bite you in the worst place. I know that for
Isn't
sure.
that true? So we have a big emotional scale up in our hallway. It's one of our things that I learned from Esther and Jerry Hicks and all the Abraham material, which is fabulous. We did a family discussion on it. It's posted so that we can identify this. The family and home should be a safe place for release. So it's not about hiding your anger. It's about recognizing I am angry, and how can I get this out in a productive way and release it and move through it.
See, that's one of the things that we don't teach our children is how to deal with their emotions anywhere.
Right.
Anywhere.
Yes.
And most parents haven't got a clue because they don't even know how to deal with their own emotions. Mm-hmm. And that's I think, and that's the biggest thing that goes on in dysfunctional families.
It is. Yeah. So more than just this is you tapped into it right away. For me, although I love the soul and the spiritual language, I mean, that is my passion, and I could talk about that all day, and it is about that eternality and that we're infinite spiritual beings. But even if you don't go there, it's about getting clear on your own stuff and focusing on that interior a little bit more, not just being mesmerized with the external world. And to me, that's soul-to-soul parenting. You can use a more secular language if you choose. That doesn't matter to me. It's about, getting clear enough to live more authentically and be a model for your children and give them permission to do the same.
Well, I'll tell you what, Annie, I'm convinced that, you talk about going the metaphysical route and the esoteric route. And even then, and you can read all the books in the world, until you bring that into your being, you're not going to go anywhere anyhow. You're just going to live in a state of excitement. With what you read.
That is so true, and it took me a long time to understand that. I have to say, at first I was so excited about spirit and feeling it, and then it became very clear. Wait a minute, Annie, you've got some healing to do, sister. It's not just all about that up joy and being in that place. It's that, again, merging the dark and the light and being very willing to look honestly within, and that is when everything shifted for me.
Well, one of the things about your book that I admire is the fact that what I see is that what you're giving your children is, and the people that you work with, you're not trying to shield them from life and life's difficulties and problems, because life's tough, but that you're giving them tools to deal with life effectively.
In the hopes that as we become, each of us is on our own path to wholeness, is my personal feeling, and as we become more whole, it has been my experience that the gateway to nirvana, what spirit embodiment, conscious self-realization, becomes very possible for each and every one of us. That's what really excites me. Let's deal with what's there and move through it. It might take years, but the journey to wholeness, to me, even looking at the raw parts, I used to be kind of afraid of it.
Right.
And now, honestly, it's much more like if I feel like I'm blocked in some way, I want to look at it, I want to deal with it, because I want to get to the joy, and I feel that enough in my life, I don't want anything to hold me back from that.
Well, I've found that there are like really only two motivating things that cause us to move, because unless we move, nothing happens. I can think and think and think and think. Unless I put it into action, it's like lifting weights. Unless I lift the weight, I'm not going to get the benefits. And that is pain, which we discussed earlier. But the other motivating factor is if you get hooked into the joy enough where you really go after the joy, it'll take you the same place that pain would have taken you.
Yes, isn't that true?
Yeah, there's two real
and we
pathways.
all have different, I call it portals or gateways, whatever you want to call it, but
Right.
I describe them in my book. Like dancing, for instance. I've always been a dancer growing up, loved it, just like I love spirituality now. And when I'm feeling a little blocked, I've got a huge toolbox in one of them, and my kids know it. I need to go up and just dance. I dance up in my bedroom by myself, and I can feel the joy rising. It's a gate. I feel connected enough that drops me to my knees in gratitude often, So to know yourself that intimately, we're talking about intimacy with self here, really.
Well, I get the same thing from dancing, and I always have, especially if you dance hard. Really. But you know what? The Sufis have, a part of their thing, the whirling dervishes. That's how they reach that ecstatic state, is through that whirling dancing that they do. And a lot of people laugh at that, but if you really you see what happens for them, you start to understand that, hey, there really is a transformation occurs in this.
I absolutely
Something
get that.
goes
And
on.
all of a sudden you're in there. And kind of what I want to tell Mike, we do tell our kids, and what I say, the Lita Wise, who won American Idol, his song Sweet Serendipity, woo! I mean, it doesn't have to be up on a mountaintop as a whirling dervish in 2010. That'd be great, but for most of us, I'm living outside of Chicago. But the point is, every day, what can we utilize in our everyday reality? It is available.
Well, people like you and there are so many voices out there these days have really brought this out of the monastery, out of the ashram, into the house, into the home, into the business place, into the world where it really can be effective. Because 99% of us aren't going to go off to an ashram.
I know you would probably love to, and believe me, I would too.
I would in a heartbeat.
Right.
Yeah.
It's I'm raising 3 children. I'm driving to soccer practice. I'm here and there, but I hope to be a model and offer people support if they want to create it right here, right now, 2010, on the block, their neighborhood block.
Yep, and that's what I like about your work, and that's what makes me know that it's real. So here's a question that came to mind that I don't know that you'll have an answer for, but I think it'll start a good discussion. For years, children were raised in religious homes with the idea of teaching them the same basic, wanting the same things for them. And it didn't work in many, many, many cases. Some cases it did, but I don't know. I've heard and had many friends who were raised in that kind of family. It didn't work. What's the difference between what you're doing and that?
Well, what we're doing, and I always say to people, the book is a blueprint, especially for those perhaps who have no religion but want to offer something because they feel that the sweet serendipity, as I'll call it, the divine. Or if you are in a community every Sunday or wherever, at a temple or a church, this can enhance that. But for me, the difference really is spiritual to me is direct, divine, personal, intimate connection in whatever way you get it. If it's down at the beach, I have all these special ways and spots, or just standing doing dishes, and the ecstasy of that direct, divine connection. So we're really teaching our kids it does not need to come through anyone else. This is the voice of your own soul, and where your self-love merges with oneness deep within, that it's an interior journey. And, if you feel it on a church pew, wonderful. But if you feel it riding your Harley down Lakeshore Drive watching the sunrise,
Absolutely,
as my husband does, that's where he feels the elevated vibration. Then I'm thrilled for him. And that's one of his ways. So many thousands of paths up the mountaintop is a big theme in our family, not only for religion, but for pathways to joy, for passions, for ways to express. So I think that's really the difference there.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely. Faith, really, real faith, I think is built on experience. At least that's how it's been for me. If I can have an idea and I can believe in that idea, but if I experience it on an inner level, suddenly it becomes more real and easier to have faith in. So
I would agree, and the more you have some of these experiences that we've talked about that I used to think would, I even kind of call them mystical, my divine flow energy, is similar for a lot of people, the expanded feeling in the scalp, the tingling, the breathlessness, the tears of joy, the raised cellular vibration. But, I want just my kids to know that, wow, they have access to that all the time.
See, that was the other thing I related to with you. Unfortunately, the word mystic has been bandied about so much that and the real idea of what a mystic is, most 99% of people don't understand. I've been a mystic for years. I suspect in what I saw in your book that you are. Sometimes we're a mystic without even knowing we're a mystic.
I think that's very true. Right, empathic, intuitive, connected, understanding and feeling that large perspective without anyone necessarily having to say it. You feel it.
When you make that connection on an inner level with a God or a higher power, whatever you might want to call it, which is very much a part of being a mystic.
Hmm. And as we talk about the spiritual and the mystical, I have to say, my children have witnessed sometimes a song will take me there, and I really can't speak, and they know now. We have joy written on our glove compartment. They're like, Mom's going there again. I'm just tapping the word joy. It's that you're overcome with oneness and love. But often what we really want to show our children, too, is that solitude in this busy world, quiet, it's very important. Most of those intense experiences for me, I'm alone. Or that
Absolutely.
when the inspiration wells up and I download a whole paragraph of my book, I'm alone and I'm quiet. So really modeling that for children, for their own creative expression, they need some quiet time.
Do you teach your children to meditate?
We do.
Right.
Yes, and in many, many different ways. Again, no one right way.
Absolutely.
Formal, yes. Active meditation, the powerful pause, we utilize a lot. Just even 3 minutes of just deep breathing and centering. We'll meditate after family discussion.
Sitting quietly, just sitting quietly is a good meditation.
Exactly.
Matter of fact,
sit and pet the dog in the backyard on the lounge chair for 10 minutes. In today's busy world, I have women friends who say they don't sit down all day. And I think, oh my goodness, I'm busy, but then I take a powerful pause, I relax. That's just how I am. I need a lot of downtime mixed with the proactivity.
It's essential, and a little solitude too, especially trying to raise children. If you don't get restored, it can be very difficult. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you: you have what, 3 children?
3, yes.
And what sex are they? You got a boy, girl?
I have 2 girls now, age 14, 12, and then a little boy who's 10.
What do you have? Twins?
No, a little boy who's 10. So the 2 girls are very close in age. And
they're just close. Okay.
Teenager, preteen now.
So what's the worst problem you've had to deal with your children? What's the worst thing that's come up in your family life with them? I mean, I know that's kind of an intimate question to ask you on the show.
We have not had any huge tragedies or anything like that. Just normal. We live in a fairly small house, but I think we're on top of each other a lot. But I think that really, in a conscious family, a lot of people might think it would look like perfection.
Hardly, huh?
No, you're exactly right, because you know what? You're authentic. You bump up against each other. You're actually not stuffing it down just to be the peacekeeper. It's like, let's look at this and move through it. So it's a lot different than people might assume. And the joy is turned up. There's dancing, there's singing, there's rowdiness, all of that. But a big thing to me is becoming more accountable. Yes. Our children now, and it's baby steps, digestible bites, but they're much more aware that they are creating their own reality, or co-creating, if you want to say it that way. They're shaping their future reality. So thoughts, words, deeds, priorities, beliefs, experiences, life choices, they know that they're responsible in large part for what their future moment will look like.
You were a school teacher, right?
Yes, 4th and 5th grade.
And how old were your children when you really decided that you needed to follow your passion and stop teaching school? How old were they?
I taught, and when I had my first, I was a stay-at-home mom for a bit. And then when my children were 8, 7, and 4, I started very slowly and organically, grassroots, my own spiritual support practice. And that's when we consciously said, you know what, we're doing many wonderful things in the family, but we're going to make it official. We would like to teach our children specifically a lot of the themes mentioned in the book, and came up with the vehicles and ideas of how to go about doing that.
So they were 8 at that time? Or?
8, 7, and 4. Mm-hmm.
And
what, small.
What kind of resistance did you run into?
None at that time. I have to say, it is never too late. I mean, you have an adult child to go into conversations and begin sharing perspective in your own way. But the younger the children are, it's a little bit easier. Like that's just, our children know that we do a family discussion once a week. The terms that we use, eternal and self-love and transparency and all those great terms are just kind of embedded into the fabric of our everyday family life. So you want to try and begin building a framework. And when they're young, a picture book. it doesn't even have to be a spiritual picture book. There are themes everywhere. You watch a movie together,
Right.
and there's the theme, and you can relate it as deeply as you want into the metaphysical world, or just take it a little bit into that.
Tom's going to I bring my dogs into the studio, and he's going to take them and let them out back. I think they're just.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Well, they're like kids, really. My children are raised, and so my dogs are my kids these days. So
Yes.
yeah. So tell me, what really prompted you? I mean, why did you think you needed the book to do what you're doing? Did you start out with workshops? What was your path?
I believe it or I just since I was 19 was my passion, and then I would sit in play groups with other moms. Well, when I taught, I knew language arts and math, of course, it's important, but my passion was looking deeply into these children's eyes and thinking, oh my gosh, do you know who you really are as a spirit, as part of something so magnificent, But in a public school, I wasn't going to go exactly there, so I did it in the best way that I could. But I followed my heart, my passion, in a playgroup, literally in the park. Somehow the conversation might turn a little bit more esoteric, and I can talk about genes and hair and politics and all that, but the soul, talking about that is just what's always, you can see it in my eyes, in my enthusiasm. And a friend of mine offered me a very beautiful gift, kind of unknowingly. She needed a speaker for a forum. And she said, Annie, will you talk about what you're doing in your own family? And I said, okay, I will. And I knew I would, and I was very nervous to do it. And after that talk, it led to another talk, and then women came up to me after and said, this is all great for the family, but can you start teaching workshops on spiritual development for us? And I said, sure. So it just kind of has been very, just moved along, very natural pace. And in the book, it just became clear. I had a very strong intuitive flash on a walk one day. The title came to me. I wanted to offer it more to the world at large because it offers so much to our family.
Right.
And, we offer our kids, like I said, a lot, extracurricular and this and that, but my husband and I both know that this, deep in our hearts, this will be the best of what we offered our children.
One of the things that is key to this whole process that you do is that the parents be awake and conscious. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, there's no way that they can really. Am I correct?
Yes, and that's why a lot of people that have read the book, and there are many, oh my gosh, many wonderful books out there. I list 200 in the back of my book.
Yes.
But it's parenting the parent a little bit, opening them a little bit to even contemplating things of this nature, this spiritual nature, and their own path of self-discovery, igniting that for them first. So
it seems to me that there are, gosh, I wouldn't have a clue the numbers, but the amount of parents out there who haven't got a clue how to parent their children, and they're trying to, the troubles that we're experiencing with our youth these days. I maybe not just these days, maybe it's always been that way. Mm-hmm. But do you have some kind of an outreach program where you're not just hitting these low-hanging fruit, I guess, people who are just
yes. I'm hoping, I'm working on that. I think that we're in the middle of a transformation, and I think the more of us that can be very comfortable in our own skin, I called it coming out. I call myself a soul nurturer, and 6 years ago, I literally, that's what it felt like. It felt like coming out, like at my kids' elementary school.
I hear
People
that.
had no idea that this simmered underneath my normal just facade at the school, we'll say,
Sure.
So I spoke at the preschool. I've spoken at the public library several times, and it's just living true. And for me right now, I'll speak where anyone wants me to speak, and I have ideas of different places where that could go. But that's the best of what we can all offer. I feel like your show, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful,
Well, one of the things I was thinking about, Annie, is like, because what you have here is so impacting. Is if you were to do some talking at some of the jails and some of the mothers with infants and some of the those kinds of places, my goodness, you would really touch some hearts. this kind of thing around some of these social programs, where they deal with women, battered women, and that kind of thing. Gosh, what a help that would be for them.
Well, you're very intuitive, actually, because I have a wonderful intuitive here that's a dear friend, and she said to me about 2 years ago, she said that exact same thing. She said, I see, believe it or not, yeah, this is going to go beyond the suburbs, and it's going to go more in that direction of, she saw specifically women and children who are homeless because they will discover their interior home.
Absolutely.
And what greater gift,
Absolutely. Well, I know in reading your book here that you're an empath, and I likewise am an empath. I had a little hard time dealing with that for a long time.
Yes, you and me, the boundaries, being able to assist without taking on, that's been one of my biggest life lessons.
Oh, that's huge, isn't it?
Huge, yeah.
Yeah, not fixing sometimes, but listening. So tell me, you just mentioned a word that I think is hugely important, is boundaries. How do you teach your children boundaries? How do you do that with them?
Well, we've really worked a lot on having them understand that the beautiful divine paradox, the divine dichotomy that can be found everywhere in everyday life, from the ocean, the wave, the piano and the piano key, the letter and the word. Really, we've done a lot of work. It's oneness and individuation.
Right.
It's connectedness and boundaries. And even like the movie Avatar, when our family saw that, we loved it. We saw it together as a family and, of course, discussed it after. And that was not foreign to us, this feeling of we're all connected, and yet we have a responsibility and the right to come here and do what we came here to do. And we're led to what we came here to do according to what brings us joy, what raises us up.
Absolutely.
There's a family that we know of here, and the little boy loved fabrics and textures. And all his life, just always, the touching. And the mother at age, I believe he was 12, gave him a sewing machine. And that was the best gift, the most joyous gift that this boy had ever received. And you know what? That, to me, is soul-to-soul parenting at its finest. She may not have used one metaphysical phrase, but she saw her child. She felt who he really is and what he came here to express. So I love that example.
And what an impact on that child's self-esteem. Because right at that point, it could have went either way.
Right, and if it goes the other way, and the father resisted a bit, with societal norms and this and that, but allowed it. But the mother was the true spiritual leader in that situation. And what we were talking about, psychic debris, he either stuffs down his natural inclination, his passion, and it becomes resentment, anger, or we allow it to flow. That's who he naturally is. So really kind of looking at that pretty carefully, the texture of your child, the texture of yourself, and not being afraid to express it.
Being authentic is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, and a lot of people have said, authentic's a word that's being thrown around, but
real.
Comfortable in one's own skin, however you want to put it. But authentic's a powerful word. I'm glad it's being used more nowadays. That's where we need to go.
Are you familiar with Carl Jung's work, Dr. Carl Jung?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was the thing with Jung. He actually was a mystic. He bought one of the Nag Hammadi codices, that they discovered in the jars up in the caves, and wrote a mystic tract. But because of his position, he really but he, his bent wasn't. He wasn't trying to be spiritual so much as he was trying to become an authentic human being.
Yes.
Which I think is everything that your book works towards, is to bring you into that authentic space. So it isn't just a word in your case. I see that very clearly.
Yeah, feeling it, and I love the fact that you say that again. And I say in the introduction of my book, I'm true to myself, and I happen to love that type of spiritual language. It just, but that's not really what it's about. You're exactly right. It's about what is your authentic language? What is your authentic expression? And it might be, might be through sports. My husband's a high school biology teacher and a girls' varsity soccer coach, and he does it. He gets there in a much, much different way, and I respect that. And our children are very aware that we express differently.
Well, you see, that's one of the things with what we're doing. I believe that the diversity that we have in this spirituality, it textures it, it makes it wonderful, and like to deny that because we're so set that there's only one way is hugely detrimental, and
Yes.
hugely detrimental. We need to celebrate our diversity, not condemn it.
Right. Exactly. And I think the more we become tolerant of the diversity, to me, again, the divine dichotomy, I feel oneness more. When I'm with someone and with a group, when we're each allowing the other to express, that's when I sense the oneness. So I just love that. I really find great solace in that divine dichotomy. It's not either or. It can be and both if you look closely enough.
Well, one of the things that I'm curious about with your family life, because you know what, it all comes down to, how is this working for you? Because if it's working for you, it can work for other people. You have a couple of teenagers, and teenagers are going to be teenagers, and you can train them until you're blue in the face. They're still going to be teenagers, and they're going to have all their stuff, and that's the way it should be. How do you discipline them? What do you do for discipline?
We this is not a free for all by any means. This is not free form parenting. I mean, they know that now it's the point where we're guiding them more, but ultimately for their own good, there are going to be rules and boundaries. Absolutely. We speak a lot more in terms of natural consequences for them, whatever they're doing, for them in this house, for them out in the world. I say a lot to my teenagers, and they know what this means because we've talked about it, as I drop them off to be with mixed company, headed to a movie. Piper, stay awake, girl, stay awake. And she knows what that means. It means that there are natural consequences to everything you put on Facebook, to everything you speak, to that next choice, and that they are responsible for that. So that's really how we talk about it. And if they make a choice that they trust that they can share anything with us, I think, still to this point, but that, they will be accountable. There's no doubt about it, because that's the way of it.
Well, I think that's more. I think what I really see going for you more than anything is that, I think back to my childhood, and my mother was don't do as I do, do as I say kind of thing. And in being in and around addictions of every kind that you can think of, what I see so often is children who are emulating their parents.
Yes.
And the truth is, the best way I can teach my child is to be whatever I want them to be. And
to live true yourself, exactly.
Well, you're modeling it, and it's like a movie is worth more than 10,000 words.
Yeah.
You become the movie.
One of my tips is show your spirit. I mean, let your kids see the giddiness in you, the gardener in you, the healer in you. We fall into these roles, and to me, it's soul to soul, not role to role. So I am a multifaceted, multidimensional being, and we talk about that way, as are they. So I'm not just mom. Yes, I am their mother, and we've chosen one another. I'm thrilled to be so. But they, when I wrote my book, and those first stack of books came in a box last May, and my girls came home from school. And, it's not like they were jumping up doing the hula hoop or anything, but I tell you what, I saw it in their eyes. They could see my sense of accomplishment, of having followed through with my passion, and I could see that it gave them energetic permission to do the same. And that, there are no words for that. To see that in their eyes,
there are no
registered. Words. Yeah. And so I wanted to register for them. They have a right to their joy. They have a right to work through their anger. They have a right to voice, I don't like that, They see me journaling all the time. I do an intuitive gratitude journal.
Right.
They all have journals. They don't do it as religiously as I do, but they witness that. That's how I work out a lot of what needs to be worked out for me. That's where I run up after I'm doing the laundry to record a great idea for my book. So it's little things like that. You don't even need to say anything.
Well, you see, you're back down to a principle that Plato talked about, or I guess Socrates before Plato, was the self-examined life is a life not worth living.
I
And,
know.
and that intuitive journal is a huge way to do self-examination. Very
It is.
powerful.
That was one of the best gifts. My teacher, Sonia Choquette, years ago, she's written many books, but really taught me. And, a gratitude journal I'd kind of kept before. I do the combination. I mean, this
Right.
is where I write down my hits. This is where I have a situation in the external world that, I've dropped down the emotional scale a little bit, and instead of blaming the other person, I want to identify why I'm plugged into what occurred. That's what I always want to get at. Why am I plugged into this? It's about me, not about the other person. I realize when I'm angry, I can break it down now, and sometimes it takes journaling, but usually now, not even that. It's rarely about the other person. I'm usually angry because I didn't live true. I didn't speak true. I didn't act true. I was not authentic. And so I want to take it out on the other person, but really, I didn't speak my truth when I had the opportunity to do so.
That awareness escapes the majority of people in the world. That's a huge step into our spirituality, is to come to that understanding that I'm responsible for me. People don't make me angry. It's my response that's, it's me who's making me angry over whatever I think I'm being angry about, not them.
Exactly, and these are the digestible bites that I've realized and wanted to offer in my book that we can offer our children. We role play.
Right.
They know that there are multiple perspectives, multiple valid perspectives, because it's someone else's lens. It's just as valid as yours. So let's dissect what's going on here. But it's never about, I'm right, that person's wrong. No, no, no. We need to take it a little bit further than that and dissect. And that's what we want to help our children do.
One thing, Annie, I just want to suggest a possibility, a potential for you, because I think what you're doing is so powerful. If you had a workbook with this, I believe that you could do workshops training people to do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And
soul-to-soul parenting, university,
teaching, and I think that you would be very, very successful with that. You're a very bright woman and intelligent and easy to talk with and genuine, and that goes so far. So anyhow,
thank you. That would be very, very exciting. That's a wonderful idea.
I'm pretty sure that potential exists for you. Should that be something that you might want to do, just from what I see in your book and when I talk
Thank you, George. I appreciate that. That's nice. Yeah, I would love to. You can tell by my passion. It stirs my soul to think of other parents in their own way, but if they want assistance, but offering their children a little bit more depth to what's actually occurring in reality.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you what, we're getting down to where we got 7, 8, 9 minutes left, something like that, and I probably have another 30 questions that I could ask you, things we could talk about. But what I would like to do at this point is give you an opportunity to, talk about what's most important to you. What you would like to give to the audience tonight. That's so that we don't get up to the last 2 minutes and try and come up with that. So, I'll open it up for you. You just go ahead and tell us what you think is the most important thing you came here with tonight.
I absolutely will. To me, if anything at all resonates that we've been talking about tonight, please no fear. To me, there is everything to gain and nothing to lose by knowing yourself better. And I've been in the place starting down the path. You feel excited, but you also feel a little bit like, oh, this is unknown. And I've come to find there's a lot of peace in the unknown. It's okay,
There's joy in the mystery, isn't there?
Yeah. I'm in the unknown. I'm sitting here talking about this, and I love it. I'm enjoying this so much. I don't know a month or two from now exactly where it's all going, exactly what's going to occur in my family. Of course I don't,
Sure.
So to go with the unknown, to take things in stride just a little bit more, to loosen rigid perspectives just a little bit more. To me, a lot of the joy and peace has been in an expanded perspective. And I kind of use the analogy, you can look at your thumbnail or your whole thumb or your hand or your arm, or you could be in an airplane and then you see everything, how far out can you go? That's what I say to my children, to my workshop people, how far out can we take this? So I would say that, and I would also say it used to be that I thought enlightenment was just one finish line and woo, I'm done, and I would never want it to be that now. To me, it's a continuing process where the moments of illumination become more frequent and more long-lasting. And then something occurs, and I go back into the woods a little bit, and I need to identify why am I feeling this way, and how am I going to navigate this. It's the same for me, but the joy of it for me now is once that you've tasted that kind of ecstasy that is available, that you are part of the divine presence that is so incredibly mind-boggling, beautiful, you never go back to fully not knowing that.
Are you familiar? Are you familiar with a book called "Chop Wood, Carry Water"?
No.
Well, "Chop Wood, Carry Water" it was written back, I think, in the 70s or 60s. Anyhow, the idea is like once like what do you do to reach enlightenment, and it's like what are you doing before you reach enlightenment? It's chop wood, carry water, and then what do you do after you reach enlightenment?
Chop wood,
carry water.
Exactly, but it's just to know and sense the thread of what's actually connecting us all. It's just that's all I wish for. I always joke to my friends, I want to shout from the Facebook mountaintop. Like there's only one of us in the room.
The Facebook
mountaintop. I'm not
mountaintop,
quite ready to do that to all my people out there yet in that way, but that's truly you just want to shout it because it's just amazing. There's nothing better than knowing who you really are.
One of the things you talk about, one of the words I hear you use a lot, which is really important to me, is the word joy. Because I'm convinced that God's will for me, higher power's will for me, is that I do everything necessary to bring myself to a state of joy.
I agree with you there. And I did not fully understand that for a long time, and I use the word a lot because it's actually my favorite word.
Yeah, and it's hugely important, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's so funny. It's felt, and everyone says this, but it's not when you're on a cruise. I mean, that can be fun and wonderful. It's these moments of incredible inner knowing of who you really are, therefore who everyone else really is. For me, it's this inner dimension where that joy is just palpable.
Annie, I've had moments like that, and I sense that you probably have too, where the joy was so powerful that I had to shut it down because it almost started to get painful.
Yeah.
Just too intense,
Yes.
Yeah.
And you and I may be cut from the same cloth, but I think the message here is we're all cut from that cloth, right?
Oh, I believe that, absolutely.
Yes. It excites me even just to talk about it. That's why I do what I do, and why you do what you do, I have a feeling, because that moment, which is so possible, anytime, any place, that's why we do what we do.
Annie, I've seen so many people who have fallen into the deepest degradation, who come out and start to do these themes that you talk about, these principles in their life, and come to exactly that same place that you and I are talking about. Mm-hmm. So no one's excluded.
No one.
No one.
Yes, absolutely. We are all in this together. There's no way that you could exclude yourself even if you wanted to. It would be a total farce, Well,
it'd be like trying to cut my arm off to be separate from my arm. It don't work.
Yes.
We're one.
Right. And that's why if we can, through analogies and all these little different ways, help children remember that as early as possible, they will be off and running to offer their highest potential to the world. Their interior compass, they will know it. That will be what leads them. And hey, to me, that's how we're going to change the world. Greater intimacy with our own soul is what will change our world, and beginning as early as possible.
We have just a couple of minutes left, and I want there's a point here that I think is really important that you talk about, and that is intuition or inner compass. Have you got a specific way that you've worked at helping your children to really get connected with that inner compass, that inner guidance?
I offer some things in the book. Really, a lot of what I do, it's our language. I got an intuitive hit. I feel good vibes.
Right.
And we've talked a lot in family discussions. It's introduced, but it would go a little bit deeper with the feeling. And now my kids can say, when I was listening to that song, I got that feeling, Mom. I got that feeling on my inside. And it's you can say when you feel like your eyes are sparkling, when your lips unknowingly curl up into that smile. Or we use our body a lot, the red flag, the green flag, of the excitement versus lethargy, versus a headache versus higher energy. So we use the body a lot to explain it, red light navigational system, and then we're always going for the feeling. And that you begin to train yourself by using your kids, by using all of that language within the home.
You know what, Annie? Humanity got put on a really, I wouldn't say wrong path, but certainly a diversive path by people like Descartes. Descartes said, "I think and therefore I am," and we got up in our head.
Yeah.
And the truth is, that's only half the deal. Because if I don't bring my feeling being into all of this, I'm not going anywhere.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you, and that's what we really, and be an example of that. Oh, I chose to do this because it felt like a good fit for me. Just little things like that, I think, are very powerful. Your kids are taking all that in.
Hugely important. Listen, Annie, we're out of time. I want to tell our audience again, they can get your book and find out about your workshops. Do you do any consulting by phone?
Yes, I can do phone, and I'm starting to travel more. My nest is, my nest has obviously been very important to me, and my children are older and very supportive of my work, so traveling more here and there. So, well,
go to AnnieBurnside.com, AnnieBurnside.com. Annie, thank you so much for joining us tonight. At some point in the future, we're going to have you back.
I'd love it, George. This is wonderful. I feel real simpatico with you and your work.
Absolutely. We're right there, and there's no doubt in my mind. When I read your book, I knew we were,
Thank you, and thank Tom, too. He was a joy to work with as well. You all are great down there.
He's a good guy, isn't he?
Yes, very much so.
All right, well, you have a Merry Christmas. Have a really happy holiday.
You too.
You and your family. Thank you,
Okay,
Annie.
good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Nice woman, Tom.
Yes.
Nice woman, and she's the real deal. And it's like, we talk to an awful lot of people. Some of them the real deal, and some of them not quite the real deal. So, but she's the real deal. Well, listen, I had a good time with Annie tonight. Annie Burnside. Don't forget AnnieBurnside.com. Soul to Soul Parenting. Be sure and come back next week for Howard Falco and I Am. Great book. You're going to have a good time with it. Next Tuesday, same time, 9 o'clock. And in the meantime, don't forget to accentuate the positive and have a fantastic week.